Hey, Gutfoxx here. So, SDS put out a gameplay, stream, I guess, where they went over the changes to gameplay this year over previous years. And you're going to see here the coolest thing, or one of the coolest things they've added. Might be up there. I don't know. It depends on your definition of cool, right? Like, if fielding improvements are Miles Davis, this thing is considered okay, I guess. It's kind of neat. Not the coolest thing, but basically you can perfect not only to home but to any base right now, which makes it easier to like get guys out at second and third if they're trying to stretch on you, which I think is actually a pretty big improvement. Now, I will say it's a pretty light year. Okay, it is. I gotta get it out of the way. I don't know what it is about 22, but it feels a little like the least amount of big splashes that I've ever seen for any MLB The Show game. You guys can maybe let me know how you're feeling. Obviously, the hype isn't really here. MLB is struggling with negotiations, so that's bringing a lot of issues into the the virtual world too. But it does feel like I don't know what they spent all their time on. If it wasn't like maybe it was the port to the Switch, but as far as Xbox, PlayStation, and us players going, it feels a lot like a patch almost with the changes that they brought to the game. And maybe we'll get a patch after a month of the game. We'll get something else big, but hopefully get something else coming for us. Like a couple of big things. Yeah, they brought in two new difficulty levels to help out newer players. It was interesting some of these stats they kind of revealed earlier on their exit velo. I felt like a lot of this stream was them saying and them justifying their game. And it feels like a lot of what they're doing here is kind of like patching over some of the issues that were already there versus like revamping some of the issues with the game itself. So they're kind of like justifying exit velocity of different things, the different hit types, line drive, etc. They had perfect in here too. 107 for perfect, and then good, just late, just early. Obviously, there's a ton of complaints with the game, with the gameplay, from perfects, after a go hooks foul, and then it switches to just early or something. Here are the batting averages, which is what I tend to believe them. These are the batting averages of these inputs to what the outputs are. It's ideal, right, when the better input creates higher outputs. Obviously, the closer to perfect inputs equals pretty amazing. Maybe it should be 950 instead of 850 batting average on perfects. Maybe that would satisfy us a little bit more. Good over 500 is really nice. It does suck to give up runs and say a BR run where they just float one over some of your infielders, and then you hard hit them for outs. You get 6 of your 9 outs are all line drives, and they get a few runs off the bloops, and you're I don't even know what to do anymore with this game. So it is interesting seeing the batting averages here, though. So I don't know what the perfect hits, if these are included in here, right? It's 4.6% of perfect hits. Is that included in the home runs, triples, or is that the standalone category? You add them all up, because it is interesting on Legend. 37% of at-bats end in a strikeout, which it kind of goes with a lot of what I've seen on Legend. It's an awful mode to hit on. It's terrible because if you consider perfect percent of hits as a separate category from home runs, triples, doubles, singles, because perfects go into those things. If you look, you just add these up, right? 10% plus we'll round up to 3%, 10, 13 and a half, and we'll say 14, 18. That means the batting average at Legend is 180. You can add this for 200 maybe, or a little under 200. Is that the batting average is 180 at Legend difficulty? Am I seeing that right, or am I doing this wrong? Kind of weird. Hall of Fame, 11. We'll say 11 and a half plus 3 equals 14 and a half. We'll say 15. 2, 21, 24, 21. So 210 or so. A little higher than 210 batting average at Hall of Fame. Interesting. With a 28% strikeout percentage. That's what people's batting averages are on average. So interesting stats. Don't really tell us anything about the game, any changes, but that's kind of what they see out there. So that's what I'm talking about. When I felt like they filled this thing with a lot of almost like justifying information versus like things that they've worked on. Maybe the pandemic really screwed them over this year. They couldn't get a lot of work done. One of the biggest things is what they're showing here is with the par. In the zone, it's bigger when it's in the zone than when it's out of the zone. We talked about this on a previous video when we talked about the technical test. So that's really neat that like it gets smaller out of the zone. But I will say, playing the technical test, I didn't really notice it that much, right? Still, if you throw a ball here and they slam their PCI up with good timing, it's going out of the park, right? Throwing a high fastball is a very dangerous pitch to throw unless you know they can't get to it, unless they can't time high fastballs, or they're not ready for it because you've like been throwing them off speed with like sliders out of the zone, changeups low, that kind of stuff, and you kind of try and get it past them. Now, they did mention kind of during this portion of the game, it was a very interesting thing. They talked about having around 9 different swing types in the game. Obviously, batting stances differ greatly, hands placement, that stuff you can all move, but 9 different swing placements, like there's like pull, extreme pull, push, bounce, that kind of stuff. So 9 different swing paths along with all those other combinations of hands, feet motion. There's the stride length is different for everybody. But it is why we say some players have better strides, better swings than others. Some have the extreme pull. The pull ones I feel like are the best ones because they get around on inside pitches. A lot of people pitch you inside, and then like if you're late on an outside pitch, I haven't seen any benefits of a push hitter on my personal hitting, right? Because I feel like even pull hitters like Ken Griffey Jr., if you pitch to me outside, I'll just pull an outside pitch and hit it out of the park anyway. So that's why it feels like pull hitters are still the best hitters in the game. It doesn't feel well balanced between the different type of hitters, especially like high contact guys. Like they have these legends, they have these players in the game with high contact numbers below power, and it doesn't feel like they've been balanced around them since about 19 when the high contact guys like Tony Gwynn, everybody soiled their pants over them with how good they were. So they still haven't really talked about that fundamental issue in game balance and cards coming out, and they got the rights of guys, but nobody really uses them. They're not quote unquote meta because they won't play well because of the lack of power. Even in BR, you wouldn't want to take a guy with no power because over if you have a 20 in BR 20 contact or 100 power, 100 contact 20 power, I would rather take the 20 contact 100. I'd take the Joey Gallo over the Nick Magical type of guys every day of the week. So that's kind of something I want to talk about. They also talk about here Outliers. It's just kind of like a graphic. I really guess I don't have to talk about that much. But they do talk about Outliers, how they talk about PCI anchors. I don't really need to talk about PCI anchors much, do I? Because we talked about in our last videos. Basically, you can anchor your PCI to different spots of the zone, which is kind of neat. I did have the didn't I? Yeah. So inside. So anyways, this is more of the justification of it. I wouldn't watch the video at all. It was kind of a bad one. They kind of justified, hey, that's baseball. And it really felt, I don't know, insulting a little bit. Like a waste of our time. Because the only people watching this stuff are the diehards, okay? Here's the par part where, if you're running a sinker or a changeup, if you throw it high in the zone, it goes wider. If you throw it low in the zone, it gets lower. Playing the technical test, high inside sinkers still were deadly. Like I'm talking about this. It's like a band-aid. It helps. Don't get me wrong. It definitely helps. It's harder to pitch this year than pinpoint than it was in previous years, than last year, the only year with pinpoint. But still high in sinkers. Yeah, you'll miss a little bit. But if you have perfect inputs, you ain't gonna miss much. That par don't really mean much. If he throws that with perfect inputs, it's basically going exactly where that baseball's going. Maybe a little bit of variation, but the par is, I don't want to call it fake news, but the percentage that it's gonna land where you want it is pretty high even when you perfectly input, which I think is okay. Also, since the fastballs and cutter is a very good pitch because the par doesn't increase. So you could probably see a lot of cutters this year. You saw a lot of cutters last year. It's definitely something that you should be using in your repertoire quite often. So the par breakdown, it will impact off-speed stuff high in the zone or where we shouldn't be putting it. Okay. Let's talk about the outlier. So there's going to be an accuracy penalty when you're using outlier and a small velocity decrease. Outlier is still going to be very dominant. We saw that in the tech test. It really got on you quick. 101 is still 101, even though they're bringing it down from 102. it's still very fast, and still, Nolan Ryan's going to be kind of a beast to catch up to. They talked about power and contact swings a little bit. It looks like they nerfed both of them. Contact got nerfed outside the zone. Power swings got nerfed. Looks like they're going to swing through more pitches. I think in general, there's going to be more swing through pitches, but playing in the technical test, the fact that people are very early on pitches down and away and fouling them off is so annoying. I don't know. They got to take timing a little bit more into effect when you swing and miss at a pitch away and you're very early, or inside and you're very late and you're just fouling it off. And it's just like, man, I had him so fooled. Like, swinging at it and hitting a ball in the dirt and fouling it off, it's like, it's great for the batter because they get the pitch, they get another one. But like, they lost, right? They made a terrible decision, but didn't get punished for it. So hopefully they can kind of, here's the outlier change they talk about. Hopefully they kind of keep going more with this going forward for the online game. Obviously, simulation. That should play how it should play for offline. Although they kind of change the schedule up. We'll see if they have any franchise improvements down the road, but I don't know if they're going to. Anyways, I didn't see them talk about bunting. Bunting's still a major issue. I don't know why it's so easy to bunt in this game. Why are you not putting the PCI on the ball when you're bunting, right? Why can you bunt the ball out of the strike zone for like a god tier bunt down the third base line for an easy hit with fast runners, right? That, again, blows my mind how there's so many problems with the game, and it feels like they've only knocked out or only looked at like 25% of them still, and it's kind of disturbing, right? Outfielders are moving way too fast. Not there's maybe their top speed, but like their acceleration is insane right now. They did talk about fielding and stuff, and they keep tweaking that, so that's kind of cool to keep looking at it. Pinpoint pitching, you see this. Off-speed gesture accuracy got easier, but fastball gesture accuracy got harder. I don't know why. I really don't. I thought off-speed should be harder. I don't know. We'll see if curveballs still randomly hang. Like, I feel like curveballs hang by far the most for some random reason, right? If you have like the same amount of miss on, say, a slider and a curveball, the curveball I feel like hangs at a much higher rate. Or what's it better? Like a sinker and a curveball. I feel like the sinker won't nearly miss as much and go to a bad spot like the middle of the plate like the curveball will. But maybe that's just me. Maybe it's just the way the curveball is just IRL. It's kind of like looping and stuff, and it feels easier maybe for the human eye to pick up. Let's talk about the PCI now. Here's the different game modes. We have this in this past year's game. We don't have to talk about that much. Competitive tuning they talked about. Let's go to, that's perfect throws to every base. I wanted to talk about the PCI. They kind of talked about it a little bit. Maybe it wasn't here. They talked about the PCI not being the bat. Obviously, it's not the shape of the bat. The PCI looks very differently. But, like, I feel like it's a cop-out. I feel like SDS says that. It's like, oh, it's not the bat. But I feel like that's something that you say when, like, you're trying to be, like, defensive about it. I get it. It's an accurate statement. But I feel like it's an excuse. It's an excuse to kind of get around the entire issue that you have in your game, right? Like, I'll perfect something, which means it goes to the middle of my bat. I have perfect timing in the middle of my bat. Why is that perfect? And it's got like the best outcome, right? Because you saw it the best. Okay, so when you don't see something and you swing and your PCI doesn't even touch the ball and it goes out of the park, your eyes were closed and you hit a home run or something. Like, I guess you're like, oh yeah, you just got lucky, right? You can close your eyes, swing a bat, and hit a baseball out of the park. It's like, I guess technically, but that's like 1 in a million with the timing how it is. I don't know. I feel like it's an excuse. I don't like that excuse, right? I get it. We got like guys like 125 contact, 125 power, and the game is not built. It was never designed back when it was first implemented with the system to have over 100 stats. They kind of tacked it on top because it's kind of cool for the immortals, and then they kind of just like giving everybody it these past couple years. So it really becomes an issue more later in the year. You will see it a little bit early in the year though, but you'll see a lot less people complaining about it. And you'll see that start to kick up again in July, August, that time for the off PCI home runs, especially nowadays. Like if you play the game now, you're gonna see a ton of off PCI home runs because of the way 125 works. So like it feels like, you know, in the competitive game or the online game mode that a player's input, and I will say the better player does win a majority of the time. in MLB The Show. It's still that way, but like when you have two guys that are pretty similarly skilled, it's gonna come down a lot of times to randomness. Pitcher confidence is still, I feel like, very too powerful in this game. I know stamina in ranked seasons, a lot of people have a problem with that. With pinpoint, it's got some issues with stamina still I didn't talk about. So there you go. That's the game, man. I don't know. The game is the game. I'm a little disappointed. Chase Utley's kind of a cool bring. Somebody made a nice little thing on the subreddit about Chase Utley here. Let's do it like this. Yeah, there's like endgame stats to project. Chase Utley would probably have better than that. Like this is like a solid mid-year card, I guess. But it's kind of realistic to what he was actually, which is a nice, like pretty great all-around card actually. Not endgame, but very nice all-around Chase Utley card. So let me know what you guys thought, what you guys think for MLB The Show. I almost said Madden. MLB The Show 22. Do you like it? I hope a lot of these small changes like tune the game up. It feels like they're bringing it over to Switch. It feels like it's gonna be a couple years before they go to the next gen. Maybe it's gonna be MLB The Show 24 before we get our fear. Like maybe they're working on like a system now, like these next couple games, or maybe even this year and next year they'll have a great game. These next couple of games are kind of like tunes up, and then like 24 it'll be off the old gens. Boom, next gen only. That's huge. New, like, I don't know, graphics system, engine system, that kind of stuff. We can only hope and we can only pray that we keep getting more and more changes. They keep listening to the community for a lot of frustrations we have. But anyways, until then, hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching Call to Action. I will see you tomorrow.